You are listening to Passport Talks.
All right, let's jump in. Have you ever found yourself scrolling online, maybe dreaming of swapping your current surroundings for, sunshine, ancient history, that famous Greek pace of life? Perhaps you're specifically a U.S. citizen, and that idea feels, well, maybe surprisingly within reach.
Oh, it's a powerful pull for sure. That classic Mediterranean appeal. Plus, the cost of living can often be more favorable than many parts of the U.S.
Yeah.
And those growing expat communities already there.
Yeah.
It's easy to see why Greece is on so many minds.
Absolutely. And for U.S. citizens specifically, wanting to turn that dream into something real, there's a particular pathway that's really gained traction. We're talking about the Greece Golden Visa program. It's become, well, pretty significant recently.
It truly has. I mean, the numbers show it. U.S. citizens rank 7th globally in getting those initial golden visa permits as of July 2024.
7th? Wow.
Yeah, that puts them right up there among the top applicants worldwide.
7th worldwide. That is impressive. And from the source material you've shared, it seems clear this isn't just about moving house. It's often seen as an investment strategy that also happens to unlock European residency.
That's a perfect way to put it. It really blends those two goals for people looking for opportunity and flexibility.
Exactly. So using this stack of sources you've provided, let's do a real deep dive into what the Greece Golden Visa program is all about for U.S. citizens right now. We'll unpack its core requirements, explore the key benefits, look closely at the investment options, including those really crucial recent changes, and sort of walk step by step through the application process.
Sounds good. Let's get started then. So, at its heart, the Greece Golden Visa is a residency by investment program. It kicked off back in 2013.
Okay, residency by investment. So the basic idea is you make a significant qualifying investment in Greece, and in return, you and your family get a residence permit. How does that permit work, initially?
Right, so it grants you a 5-year residence card. And that card covers not just you, the main investor, but also your immediate family members.
5 years. Okay. What happens after that 5 years is up?
So this is a really key feature. The permit is indefinitely renewable. As long as you keep meeting the program's requirements and, this is crucial, you maintain that original investment.
You keep the investment.
Exactly. Then you can renew the permit for another 5 years and then another 5 years, basically without limit.
Indefinitely renewable.
Oh.
But that must be a huge draw, that long-term security, knowing you don't have to start over every few years.
So absolutely. It provides a very stable path.
Yeah. So let's talk about the investment itself. There's a range of ways to do it, but real estate is historically the most common one, right? And this is where there have been some pretty big recent changes.
That's right. Real estate investment has definitely been the main route, but the rules updated in 2024 they've fundamentally changed the minimum amounts depending on where you buy and what kind of property it is.
Okay, let's break that down clearly based on the sources. What are the new standard minimums for buying property today?
Okay, so for a standard residential property purchase, the minimum investment now really depends heavily on location. First, you've got the high demand zones. Here, you're looking at a minimum of 800,000 euros.
800,000 euros, where does that apply?
That covers the entire Attica region. So Athens and all its suburbs, the Thessaloniki region, and also the really popular islands like Mykonos and Santorini, or Thera as it's officially known. Plus, it applies to any island with over 3,100 residents.
Wow. Okay. So big chunk of the popular spots. What about elsewhere?
For most other regions of Greece, the standard minimum is now 400,000 euros.
Okay, 400,000. So that historical 250,000 minimum that a lot of people probably heard about, that's mostly gone for just buying a regular apartment or house in the popular areas.
Pretty much, yeah. The 250,000 threshold still exists, but only for very specific, quite limited exceptions. The sources mention things like properties being converted, say, from industrial to residential use.
Okay.
Or listed historic buildings that need significant restoration work.
Right. And is there a catch with those 250K exceptions? Sounds like there might be.
Yes, a pretty big one. With the conversions, the actual conversion work must be finished before you even apply for the Golden Visa. And for those listed historic buildings needing restoration, the main restoration must also be finished before you purchase the property and apply. So these aren't buy it and fix it up later deals for the visa. The work has to be done up front to qualify at that lower 250K level. They're definitely more complex.
That's a really critical detail. So for most people, say a U.S. citizen just looking to buy a finished home or apartment, they really need to be thinking 400,000 or 800,000 euro, depending on where they want to buy.
Exactly. That's the new reality for standard real estate investment for the Golden Visa. And beyond the price, there's also usually a rule about the property size typically needs a minimum floor space of 120 square meters.
120 square meters, okay.
And it's often for a single property purchase, though you can sometimes buy through a legal entity you control, rather than just in your own name.
Okay, got it. So real estate has clearly changed. But what about those other investment options you mentioned? Are there still ways in besides buying property?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The program still offers other investment routes. They generally start at higher minimums now than that old 250K real estate entry point, though. For example, you could invest 400,000 euros in something like a 10-year lease or timeshare contract for tourist accommodation.
Interesting. Or I think the sources mentioned 500,000 in a fixed bank deposit, or putting capital into a Greek company.
Right, exactly. And then there are options like buying shares in certain types of investment funds. Those start around 350,000 euros. And investing in corporate or government bonds listed in Greece. That typically requires 800,000 euros.
Okay, so while real estate is still, very popular, there is quite a range of options depending on your investment style and how much capital you're working with. That flexibility is good.
It certainly is. It definitely caters to different types of investors.
Speaking of benefits, let's really unpack the why. Beyond just getting the permit itself, what are the main advantages the sources highlight for holding a Greece Golden Visa, especially as a U.S. citizen?
Well, there are 7 key benefits that usually come up. First, historically anyway, was that relatively low investment threshold. Now, even though the real estate minimums have shot up in popular areas compared to some other EU programs, the entry points, especially that 400K in many desirable regions, or even those limited 250K exceptions, they can still look competitive depending on which country you're comparing it to.
Okay, so relative cost, still potentially a factor. What's number 2? I have a feeling this is a big one for many people.
Benefit number 2, and yeah, this is probably the most significant differentiator, is that there is absolutely no requirement to live in Greece to maintain your Golden Visa residency status.
Wait, really? None at all? You don't have to spend like X number of days there each year?
Correct. For keeping the residency permit itself valid, there is 0 minimum stay requirement. You can live full-time in the U.S. or anywhere else and still keep your Greek Golden Visa active.
That's huge. So it can function truly as like a European permanent residency card or a Plan B without needing you to actually move immediately.
Exactly. It offers a level of flexibility that many other residency programs just don't have. Okay, so benefit number 3 is family inclusion.
Right. How broad is that? Who gets included under one investment?
It's quite comprehensive, actually. It covers your spouse or partner, and that includes same-sex partners, provided you register a cohabitation agreement in Greece.
Okay.
It also includes unmarried children under 21, or they could be up to age 24 if they're still full-time students and unmarried. And critically, it covers dependent parents of both the main investor and their spouse.
Wow, dependent parents of both sides. That's multiple generations under one investment. Definitely a big plus for families.
It really is, yeah. Benefit 4 relates to access to social services.
Does that mean things like healthcare and schools in Greece?
Yes. If you hold the Golden Visa, you and your included family members get access to Greece's public healthcare system. Of course, you can always opt for private healthcare too.
Sure.
And for families with kids, it provides access to the Greece state school system, or you can choose for the various international schools, particularly in the bigger cities like Athens and Thessaloniki.
Oh, okay. And if you do go the real estate route, can you make money from the property?
Absolutely. Benefit 5 is the opportunity for rental income. If you invest in property, you are totally free to rent it out. Could be long-term tenants, could be short-term tourist rentals, whatever works.
And what kind of returns are typical?
Well, the sources mentioned average annual rental yields used to be around 3-5%. More recently, they're often cited as being maybe 3-4% on average. Of course, that really depends on the specific location of the property itself.
Right. Still a potential return on the investment while you hold the residency. Good to know. Benefit 6 sounds like it's about how fast things move.
Correct. Compared to some other residency programs in Europe, Greece is generally known for being relatively quick. Benefit 6 is the processing time. Once you submit the full, complete application with all the required documents, processing can reportedly be as short as 4 months.
4 months from submitting everything to getting the permit. That does sound notably quick for these kinds of programs.
It is, relatively speaking. And the final benefit, number 7, is the long-term potential. That's the possibility of eventually applying for Greek citizenship.
Ah, right. The path to a Greek passport. How does that fit in, especially since you said you don't have to live there to keep the visa?
Yeah, this is where the requirements really diverge significantly. The option to apply for Greek citizenship through naturalization, that opens up after you've had 7 years of continuous legal residency in Greece.
Continuous legal residency. Okay, does that mean for citizenship you do actually have to live there?
Yes, absolutely. This is the fundamental difference. To be eligible for citizenship after those 7 years, you must have physically resided in Greece for a minimum of 183 days per year.
Half the year.
Every single year during that 7-year period.
Okay, that is a critical distinction. So, visa maintenance. No physical presence needed at all. Citizenship path, mandatory physical residency, more than half the year for 7 straight years.
Precisely. Holding the visa is about, flexibility, establishing legal ties, maybe having that plan B without necessarily having to relocate your whole life.
Yeah.
Pursuing citizenship, though, that's a clear commitment to living in Greece and becoming part of this society.
And what else is involved in getting citizenship besides living there for 7 years? Are there tests and things?
Yes, there are. You need to pass what they call the knowledge adequacy exams. These cover several areas. You have to prove you have B1 level proficiency in the Greek language.
E1 Greek. What does that mean practically?
It means you can handle most everyday situations, understand the main points of standard conversations, express yourself reasonably well. It's an intermediate level.
Okay. B1 Greek language. What else?
You also need to show you have knowledge of Greek geography, Greek history, the culture, and also the country's political institutions. Plus, naturally, the application requires a clean criminal record, and you need to provide evidence that you've actually integrated into Greek society.
So yeah, becoming a citizen is a much more involved process. It requires active integration, learning the language, being physically present, whereas just maintaining the golden visa is primarily about keeping that investment intact.
Exactly right. And the payoff for citizenship, of course, is full Greek citizenship, which automatically means full EU citizenship rights. So the ability to live, work, and study anywhere you want within the European Union.
Okay, that makes the distinction crystal clear. Let's circle back quickly to the real estate path, since it's so popular. The sources gave a sense of the Greek property market right now, too. What's the general picture there?
Yeah, the market's described as having seen pretty steady and quite notable growth, especially since bouncing back from the, 2008-2009 financial crisis. There's been a significant surge in both prices and demand, which apparently continued strongly right through 2023.
And is that growth expected to keep going?
The outlook seems to point towards continued strong potential. The growth rate mentioned in the sources is apparently double what it was in the years just before the pandemic hit.
Double. Wow. Are prices going up evenly across the country, or is it more concentrated?
It's definitely concentrated. The sources highlight that while overall residential prices went up by about 10.4% in 2023, the growth was much, much higher in certain specific areas. For instance, Piraeus, the port of Athens, saw a jump of 23.2%. Corfu was up 21.5%, and Thessaloniki saw prices rise 21.2%.
Those are some serious spikes in those locations. What's driving that intense demand in the hotspots?
Well, a major driver is strong interest from foreign buyers, and that's significantly fueled by the Golden Visa program itself. Plus, you have Greece's robust tourism activity playing a role.
Makes sense.
It's also noted that while Greece's growth is strong, average prices might still lag behind some broader EU trends. And yeah, the growth is definitely concentrated in those main urban centers and the popular tourist islands.
That concentration fits. You mentioned some popular investment spots earlier. Are there other areas that U.S. citizens tend to gravitate towards, maybe not just for pure investment, but for actually spending time there?
Yes, the material pointed out 4 main areas that seem particularly popular or well-suited for U.S. citizens who might be looking to spend significant time there or even live there eventually. We already touched on Athens and Thessaloniki as the major urban centers with strong investment appeal.
Right. Athens being the, historical and economic heart, world-class stuff, big expat community, and those hotspots like the Athenian Riviera and the northern suburbs for both potential appreciation and rental income.
Exactly. And Thessaloniki, the second city, offering maybe a slightly different vibe, a bit more relaxed perhaps, but still a very vibrant cultural scene, that beautiful waterfront, a nice blend of city life and coastal feel.
Okay, the two big cities, what about islands?
Crete was highlighted as being very popular. It's the largest island, so it offers just immense diversity. You've got incredible beaches, rugged mountains, tons of history, a fantastic climate. It seems particularly appealing to retirees and families, partly because it has more developed infrastructure compared to some of the smaller islands.
Diversity sounds great. And the fourth one mentioned?
That was Corfu, over in the Ionian Sea. It's often called the Green Paradise because it's so lush. Beautiful beaches, again, a very laid-back atmosphere. And importantly, it already has quite an active expat community established there. It was also flagged as having a good real estate market with a range of options, from village houses to luxury villas.
Corfu does sound lovely. The sources even dropped a little foodie tip in there.
Oh yeah, that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Mentioning trying pasta sada, that's like a hearty baked pasta dish, and sofrito, which is a traditional veal dish, as things you should really try for an authentic taste of Corfu.
Yeah, little details like that definitely bring it to life. Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, the investment changes, the market, popular locations. What about the practical stuff? What are the associated costs beyond the main investment amount? This is something people can easily overlook.
Absolutely. It's really crucial to budget for significant extra costs on top of that minimum investment figure. The sources list in several key ones. First, there's a government application fee. That's 2,000 euros for the main applicant, and then 150 euro for each dependent included on the application.
Okay, 2,000 plus 150 euro per person. What else?
If you buy property, you'll pay a property transfer tax.
Okay.
Currently, that's set at 3.09% of the property's value.
3.09%, okay.
Then you have notary fees and legal fees. These cover the work involved in the property purchase itself, closing the deal, and also helping with the visa application documents. These typically add up to another 1-2% of the purchase price.
1 to 2% for legal and notary work. Got it.
And finally, you absolutely must have valid health insurance that covers all the applicants in Greece. This can be from a Greek provider or an approved international insurance company.
Right. Health insurance is mandatory, so it's definitely not just the headline investment figure. There are several layers of fees and taxes on top. Did the sources give any kind of estimate of what that adds up to, maybe percentage-wise?
Yeah, they did provide an example based on that historical $250K investment level, which was roughly $275,000. In that scenario, the total estimated costs, including all the fees, taxes, and initial insurance, came out to around $291,500 for a single applicant and about $293,000 for a family of 4.
Okay, so doing the math quickly, that suggests those ancillary costs can add roughly, 6-7% on top of the investment amount itself?
That's about right, based on that example. So yeah, 6 to 7% is a substantial extra amount you really need to factor into your budget for the program.
Definitely. Good to flag that. Okay, costs covered. Now, the actual application process itself, how does a U.S. citizen go about navigating this from start to finish? And what's the timeline really look like?
Okay, so the overall timeline estimate given is at least 4 months, starting from when you really kick off the process until you actually get the permit card in hand. And importantly, remember, it's not a fully remote process. You absolutely have to travel to Greece at least once during...
You have to go in person. Why?
Yes. Primarily for submitting your biometrics, that means your fingerprints and getting your photo taken. And often you also need to submit some original documents in person at the migration office.
Okay, mandatory trip to Greece. So what are the key steps involved?
The sources lay out about 7 main steps. 1, preliminary due diligence. This is usually a quick initial background check on the applicant, often just takes a day or so.
Okay.
2, get a Greek tax number, AMF. This is essential. You need it for any financial transactions like opening a Greek bank account or, crucially, buying property. Getting the AMF can take up to about a week.
Tax number first. Got it.
3, fulfill the investment. This is the big step actually making the qualifying investment. If it's buying property, this involves finding it, doing due diligence, signing contracts, transferring funds. This can take anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on how complex the purchase is.
Right.
Or making the deposit, buying the shares, etc.
Right, the main event.
4, prepare documents and submit application. Now you gather all the required documents, personal ones, financial proof, proof of the investment. You'll likely need things translated and notarized. Then the application itself is submitted online through the official government portal. This preparation and submission phase might take 1 to 2 weeks. And an important detail here, once your online application gets an initial approval, you can actually enter Greece using a standard Schengen visa, like a tourist visa, specifically to attend your biometrics appointment while the full application is still being processed.
Oh, that's useful. So you don't necessarily need a special visa just for the biometrics trip after the online submission.
Exactly. Okay, step 5 is submit biometrics. This is the in-person part. You go to a scheduled appointment at a migration office in Greece to give your fingerprints and have your photo taken. Requires travel, obviously.
It's a required trip.
6, application consideration. After biometrics, the Greek authorities formally review your complete application package. This phase typically takes about 1-2 months. Once it's approved, you'll get notified, and then either you or your authorized legal representative can collect your physical residency permit card.
Okay, review and card collection.
7, renew the permit. And finally, remember, it's initially for 5 years. To keep it going, you need to formally reapply for renewal every 5 years. You have to prove you still meet all the conditions, especially that you've maintained the original investment. You should start the renewal process at least 2 months before your current permit expires. But it's important to know renewal is not automatic. You have to actively apply for it each time.
That step-by-step is really helpful, especially knowing about needing to travel for biometrics, but that you might be able to use a regular Schengen visa for that trip after the online part is okay.
Yes, those practical details are key. And it's extremely common and frankly often recommended to use professional help. Immigration lawyers or specialized consultants to guide you through this whole process. There's a lot of documentation and legal stuff to get right.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Sounds like having an expert navigate it would be wise. Okay, wow, we've covered a huge amount of ground. Let's try and bring it all together now. What are the absolute core takeaways from this deep dive into the Greece Golden Visa for U.S. citizens right now?
Okay, well, first and foremost, it is a well-established and definitely a viable path for U.S. citizens who are looking for European residency through investment.
Right. And while real estate remains the most popular way in, those really critical 2024 rule changes mean the minimum investment for standard property purchase is now significantly higher. It's either 400,000 euro or 800,000 in most areas. That old 250,000 level only applies now to very specific niche project types that have to be finished before you apply.
Exactly. That's a key update. The initial permit you get is valid for 5 years, and crucially, it's indefinitely renewable as long as you maintain that investment and continue to meet the program conditions.
And perhaps the most standout point for many, setting this program apart. There is absolutely no minimum stay requirement to maintain the Golden Visa residency permit itself. You don't actually have to live in Greece.
However, and this is the really clear fork in the road, if your ultimate goal is full Greek citizenship and therefore EU citizenship, well, that requires a totally different level of commitment.
Right.
You must have physically lived in Greece for at least 183 days per year for 7 continuous years, and you need to pass those Greek language and culture tests.
So there's a very distinct choice to make, depending on your personal goal. Is it about flexibility and having a Plan B European residency without needing to relocate? Or is it about the long-term commitment required for integration, living there, and eventually gaining full EU citizenship rights?
Precisely. Understanding that fundamental difference is absolutely key before you start.
So if you listening right now are maybe contemplating a different lifestyle, thinking about establishing a foothold in Europe, or perhaps exploring international investment that comes with these valuable residency rights, well, this deep dive into the Greece Golden Visa, based on the latest information, hopefully gives you that clear picture.
Yeah, it really leaves you with that core question to mull over. What is your ultimate driver here? Is it primarily the flexibility? Getting that European residency, having a Plan B maybe, without needing to fundamentally change where you live day to day, because that's what the core Golden Visa offers brilliantly.
Sure.
Or is your long-term vision genuinely about integrating? Is it about living in Greece for 7 years or more, learning the language, becoming a citizen, making Greece your primary home, really, in order to unlock those full EU rights?
Yeah, that distinction, residency for flexibility versus commitment for citizenship, it really highlights how the meaning and the value of this program just completely change based on what your personal goals are. It's definitely something important to think about as you weigh your options.
You are listening to Passport Talks, a podcast on how to become a true cosmopolitan, how to travel the world without visas, create a safe haven for your family, and access top-notch education and healthcare with a second passport or residency.